In 2015, Paul Zerdin became the first British person to win America's Got Talent.
Paul Zerdin!
In this moment, right here, Paul was the world's most successful ventriloquist. But that is just 5 seconds of his story. You've made a career from something you love. You've done what many see as impossible. What's the secret?
Wow. What is the secret? Well, the secret is...
How do you turn your unique passion into a career that leads to $1 million payday? That's what we're here to find out.
I think the biggest thing I have learnt is...
I'm Louis Alexander. Welcome to If You Can. Well, Paul, welcome to If You Can. It's not often I have the chance to sit down next to someone who is the truest master of their craft. And I don't mean that lightly. You have performed for millions around the world, both on screen and on stage, including for the likes of the Queen. You have won what is probably the biggest show in the world, America's Got Talent. And what I think is the greatest success is you've made a career from something you love. You've done what many see as impossible. You've turned a hobby and a passion into your livelihood, into your career. And I resonate with that because that's what I'm trying to do with my adventures, which we were talking about before we started. What's the secret?
Wow. Thank you. Great to be here. Lovely to meet you.
Likewise.
What is the secret? Well, the secret is having a dream. No, I know that sounds like a cliche, but from a very early age, I knew that I was going to end up doing something really silly and really not the norm. And from you know, being a kid at an early age, dressing up. There's a picture of me. I can't find it, but there is a photograph of me. I must have been, I don't know, maybe 8, 9, in one of my mum's dresses with necklaces and a hat and pretending to be doing an impression of Margaret Thatcher. And so I always was a bit weird as a kid, and I loved magic. I got a magic set for Christmas when I was about, I don't know, 7 or 8, and I used to get puppets, like the Pelham puppets. They used to have these marionette puppets, so I got a load of those from quite an early age. And the Muppet characters that my mum got for me for Christmas, like Ernie and Bert and Grover, and I was obsessed with that kind of world. You know, I'd been brought up watching Sesame Street on Saturday morning, so I knew that I loved that world of puppets and magic and comedy, and watching Laurel and Hardy early on with my dad. And with my sister and my dad, and Mum was always cooking the dinner. She was in the kitchen, and we were watching Laurel and Hardy at about 6:30 in the evening. So that world of sort of fun and everything was encouraged. But both my parents were. My dad went to RADA with Roger Moore. My mum went to drama school, and then her father said, "You need to get a proper job. But if you want to do it, get a proper job in broadcasting, go and work for the BBC." So she then went into the BBC and then became a presenter and an announcer. My father was a producer on the BBC World Service, and they met at Bush House, and so they were very, show-offy anyway. So they encouraged, me to sort of show off. Definitely didn't say, "Don't be stupid, get a proper job," even though I wasn't interested in academic studies. I was much more interested in doing my magic and that kind of stuff. So this is a very long answer to your first question, but it was really very, very, encouraged to show off. And when they had, Mum and Dad used to have dinner parties, when I got sort of proficient at magic, I used to do the entertainment afterwards in the front room, and I'd put on a magic show for their dinner parties. So, I was showing off from quite an early age.
So the secret in many ways is loving what you did.
Yeah, loving what you did.
It was the imagination and the spark of actually
Absolutely.
enjoying and loving it. And at that age as well, it's a very fragile time for any young person, right? How do you start to fight against those social norms of what is cool at school and different things? Often it's football and things, and when you start to go against that, how do you feel about that, and what did that sort of do to you at that young age?
Well, I used to be. I wasn't. I would say I wasn't the class clown, but I was one of them. There were a gaggle of us, and when I got to a certain age in my middle school, I think I was about 11, I wasn't doing so well, and my parents sent me to an educational psychologist, and this psychologist said, "You need to go to this school," and it was an outward bound school. It was Box Hill School near Dorking. And it was was much smaller classes, and it was for people that were slightly less academic, because I wasn't really interested. My reports always said he's got the ability, just doesn't try hard enough. Must try harder. But the turning point, we had a school talent competition. Someone did a poem. Someone was doing some sort of tap dance or something, and I levitated my sister. And I hired an illusion from the magic shop, and I got my sister. We practiced it for a few weeks, and my friend from the magic club came along, and I hypnotized my sister and went like that. She just went rigid, fell back, and I put her on the back of a chair and let go, and she was there completely suspended, and it blew people away. And I won the talent competition, and from that moment on, the last few months at school, people were pointing and going, "That's Zerdin. He can do magic." And that was a massive turning point. I thought, wow, I've found something here that really can, kind of change people's opinions, make a difference.
But that's an incredibly young age, and I know lots of people who are listening, and when I go and give talks, people often ask, how do you find your passion, your purpose so young? I started my first adventure when I was 19, but you found your passion here even younger.
Yeah.
How can someone go out there and do the same?
Yeah. I don't know. In some ways now, if you are, whatever age you are, if you're interested in something, it's easier, isn't it? You don't have to go to the library now. You can just do that and do some research straight away. It's about trying to find out as much as you can about whatever it is that you love, and then trying to find out where you can meet people that do similar things, like the Magic Club. Yeah. That was all was just luck, really. But it kind of seemed to everything. It happened at the right time in the right way, and so it gave me a huge boost. That like, oh my God, there's other people that are a bit weird like me.
Yeah, you find your crew. You find people who share that same buzz for whatever it is and for your craft.
Yeah.
And at what age does ventriloquism come into the picture? Because you've just won this talent show. Then is that when you start to build the skill, and you start to open up what different areas are possible?
Yeah. So at around about the age of 15, and so just before my GCSEs, a friend of the family gives me a book on how to be a ventriloquist, and it's written by a ventriloquist called Ray Allen. And I'm maybe 14, 15, I get this book, and it seems like quite a simple kid's book. And there's a bloke with a doll on the front, ventriloquist and his dummy on the front picture. And I think I kind of maybe have seen him before, maybe seen him on telly. Anyway, around about that sort of time, I saw an episode of the Paul Daniels show, and Paul used to do amazing stuff on there, but he would have incredible guests from around the world. So he'd have circus acts, he'd have comedians, jugglers, and ventriloquists. And I saw this ventriloquist, the guy who'd written the book that I got, and he did this spot, and it absolutely blew me away. And I thought, oh my God, okay, there's someone doing comedy with a puppet, but like the Muppets were, the puppets were the thing up in vision, the puppeteer was underneath and hidden. And I thought, oh, wow, this is a way of doing puppetry, but being in vision, but I've got to learn how to not make my lips move. And I think that seemed to be sort of part of that whole world of magic. So then I went and got this job in a magic shop, that I'd become a member of their club. And I started to get gigs. I was doing children's parties. I used to get I got a residency in a restaurant in Wimbledon, where I was on Friday, Saturday nights, I would walk around and do close-up magic. And so if you were having a romantic dinner for two, I'd come over and really annoy you and say, hello, would you like to pick a card? And people would say, sod off, or, yes, go on then. And I got, more confident. And then people would, if it went well, people would go, oh, have you got a card? We've got a party coming up. We'd love to have you entertain. And so it was just networking at quite a young age. And people in the magic shop as well. I made lots of contacts there. And then I thought, I need to get an agent. And the Stage newspaper, which is still going today, had lists of, agents and all sorts of useful things. And I found a load of agents, and I basically sent off, I wrote a CV up saying all the parties I'd already been doing, and everyone, I think 2 people wrote back saying not interested. 1 person said, come and see me. And I went to see this lady, and she looked after some magicians and some comedians. And she said, right, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a magician. What kind of magic do you do? I said, well, I do close up. I can do big stuff on stage. I can do illusions. she said, "Have you got a show reel?" And I'd got a video camera, so I'd filmed some stuff on video camera. And she said, "Okay," and we watched it together. And she said, "All right," she said, "I've got loads of magicians. What have you got that's different?" And I said, "I'm learning ventriloquism." And she said, "Now I'm interested. Are you any good?" I went, "Well, I'm still learning." She said, "All right, come back when you've got an act." So I went off, and about a year later, I got back in touch with her, and she sent me on a cruise ship in Scandinavia, and I worked on the cruise ship for about 2 months, doing 2 shows a day, a family show in the afternoon and an adult show at night in the nightclub. And I came back after that thinking, "Oh my God, I'm ready for world stardom now. I want my own TV show." And then she sent me to working men's clubs up in the northeast of England, social clubs, holiday parks. I'd never been to anything like this before, and I had, you know, people throwing things at me, and you know, if you didn't grab the audience straight away, that you were in trouble. You'd walk off to the sound of your own footsteps, and then I really had to sort of learn the ropes.
Well, this is kind of your first time that you're showing your comedy and your acts to people outside of your family, your
Absolutely.
friends, your magic club and the comedy club.
Definitely.
So how are you then sort of dealing with that, the pressures of performing for a stranger for the first time? As a young person too, is that sort of something you just have that resilience and that confidence to do? Is it something you had to work on, those nerves, those pressures?
I had confidence, and I'd kind of built up a resilience, a certain amount of it, and I just had this. I think ever since I was a kid, I sort of had this inner belief, and I was in these working men's clubs with this puppet, and I think they gave me a chance because I wasn't some old bloke with a creepy looking doll on his knee that looked a bit naff. I was young, and I was doing something a bit modern, and my jokes that I'd written were pretty, you know, hit and miss. But you find very quickly in those scenarios that if you don't hit the mark, you don't get the laughs, and you don't get the audience on your side, then you've had it. So you learn quickly to, all right, well, that gag worked, that didn't work, okay, well, I'll try this, I'll move them around, this order works better, then if I start with the puppet there, then I can do some stand-up here, and so I started just, you know, I had a lot of work for that summer, and I was working every night doing holiday parks and working men's clubs, and you literally, you are honing it so quickly because you've got to survive. And I think that's probably where some people start, you know, give it a go in showbiz and just think, oh my God, I can't deal with the rejection. It's not a nice thing when you die on your arse, but it is a necessity, and you need to know what that's like.
And how did you process that fear, or that spike of that moment of when you're in the moment when people aren't reacting how you want to? How do you process it?
You just carry on really, and just pretend everything's fine. And because the moment you kind of go, because they say that when you're nervous, you get a dry mouth, you speed up. If you're delivering, not just for comedy, but you know, if someone is like making a speech, and I think after dinner or making a public announcements, public speaking is one of the most feared things in life, apart from spiders. You know, arachnophobia and public speaking are the 2 big things, I believe. Anyway, what happens is you start talking quickly and trying to get through it, and you get nervous and your mouth dries up, and so I remember someone saying to me years ago, saying, whatever happens, don't speed up. Just keep your cool, and just keep going.
Part of my career is being a public speaker, and I speak at corporate audiences, schools, universities, all that kind of thing. The biggest audience I've done is 1,000 people. This is a selfish question for me. Yeah. But as that number grows and grows and grows, what's your advice?
That's a great question, and I think the bigger the audience, in my experience, the easier it is. I
agree, by the way.
But you do agree.
The hardest talk I did was for 5 people.
There you go.
Well, and it was like a coffee sat around fireside chat, and it was 5 people, and it was so difficult because at one point someone went on their phone, and I noticed it. Yeah. Whereas in 1,000 people, sure, probably 10 people have fallen asleep. They're probably on their phones, but you don't notice it because you don't see, the white in their eyes.
Exactly.
So I thought that's what you were going to say, but I just wanted to almost to check.
Well, I was my first ever Edinburgh Festival. I had 7 people in the audience, and the venue was not massive, but it held, 160, 170, and I had 7 people. And the 7 people consisted of my agent, my promoter, the promoter's wife, the friend of the promoter, and 2 paying punters. And I had to do an hour. And I remember thinking, this is going to be a very long hour. And suddenly your material that easily can hold an hour, sustain that amount of time, suddenly gets eaten up because the laughs are not anywhere near as long, and there's not many people laughing, so you were having to pad it out a bit. But that was far more nerve-wracking than walking on stage at like Radio City, which holds 6,000, and then you know that there's 20 million watching live on telly. Or after I went and did the American talent show, I then went and did casinos, not just in Vegas, but in Canada, Indian reservations, New York State, and I was playing to 4,000 or 5,000 people, and they'd have screens. So they're kind of like little arenas, really. So you have these big screens either side of the stage, because people at the back, they can't see you, and they're watching you on a screen. I mean, it's about the comedy. So as long as they hear what I'm saying, even if they can't see, but my lips aren't moving, it doesn't really matter. It's about the comedy. But that I found that easier, walking out on stage, because there were so many people there. I just thought, well, they've all come to see me, so they must like what I do. Let's have a good time, and that's far less nerve-wracking than a small gig. And sometimes if I pop into a comedy club and I'll just try out some material, there might be 50 people, and sometimes that's far more scarier.
It's surreal being sat here in front of the world's most successful ventriloquist, Paul Zerdin. What an incredible guy, famous for giving his characters a voice and an opportunity to spread laughter and entertain millions. Well, it's thanks to my friends at Bob that I've got this platform, and I'm able to share stories like Paul's with you. Bob is a refillable body wash for men. Each of their refill bars smell great, they're TSA approved, which means they're perfect for travel. In fact, that's where I first discovered Bob on my last adventure across Australia, which wouldn't have been possible without their backing too. I'm really proud to be working alongside Bob on this show, and I will always take the opportunity to show them gratitude whenever I can. It would be great if you could show them some love too. I know that Mike, Will and Max behind the scenes would really appreciate it. Please click the link in the description to find out more about Bob. Thank you. But the 7 people, your first one, to say up to 6,000, how important is it to treat those small stages and those big stages the same? And by stage, I mean it could be anything for someone. It could be someone who works in business and they've got a small meeting and a big meeting, or someone who's a teacher and they've got a small presentation, a big presentation. I'm trying to give context for the audience. How important it is to treat those small and big stages with the same amount of respect and hustle and grind.
I think, and the older I get, I think, and I think this does come with age, is that you just don't want to waste the time that you have, and so you must give everything, give it your best shot. Mm-hmm. Treat each day as if it were your last. That thing. So I.
But then that's what you did.
Yeah.
And in some ways what you still do today. But you did that and you reaped the rewards. You established a legacy as the greatest ventriloquist in the country.
In the price range.
And you travelled the world, and you had tours and shows and all these amazing opportunities. And then you decided to take a big risk. You then went across the pond to America to audition for America's Got Talent. Why would you risk everything you had in the UK that you've built and you've worked so hard for? Why would you risk it all to go across the pond to America?
That is a really good question, and I was thinking the exact same thing as I walked out on stage at the Dolby Theatre in Hollywood, where the Oscars come from. I knew this theatre from the Oscars, and I'm walking out on stage in front of Howard Stern, Howie Mandel, Heidi Klum, and Mel B. Mm-hmm. Now, Mel B, I sort of vaguely knew from, I met her on some show a long time ago, but I remember thinking, what are you doing? But also, I remember thinking, you're here, you might as well. And I think the reason why I did that was I'd got so far in this country and I had a very successful career. I hadn't got the TV show that I wanted. I'd piloted various different shows for Channel 5, ITV, BBC One over the years, and there was always a stumbling block somewhere. And I had an idea for a street vent show, which was a cross between David Blaine's Street Magic and Dom Jolly's Trigger Happy TV. And I'd done a few pranks on various shows as a guest, hidden camera stuff. I never got the show that I wanted, and that was always my dream, my goal. And so I felt frustrated, and so I thought, I can't do Britain's Got Talent because I've already done a talent show, and the prize for Britain's Got Talent is appearing on the Royal Variety Show, and I'd already done that a number of times by the time I then went to America. So I thought, let's go to America. It's a much bigger place, bigger market, and if it doesn't work out, I don't live there, who cares? And so that was my thinking behind it. So as I walk out on stage, I remember thinking, don't fuck this up. There's quite a lot going on here. There's a lot at stake. If it goes well, who knows? If it doesn't go well, it's not the end of the world. Show them what you can do. And so that's what I did. I just went out and I thought, actually, and there was a little voice in my head saying, try and enjoy it. And that's the thing as well, when you're in these situations that are, high profile, high pressure or whatever, you have to try and savor the moment as well, because you don't know if you'll have that moment again. And you want to try and enjoy it, even though you're thinking, oh my God, I don't want to get buzzed. That's a pressure. And that, I suppose that was the worst thing that could have happened. I've got a successful career in the UK. I go to America. Hello, my name's Paul. I'd like to do some ventriloquism. I'm not going to get a puppet out. They could have done that. That could have gone on, but they went for it. And I knew that they liked the British accent anyway in America. And so I then got through to the live shows, and I just knew that I was being received really nicely, really well. And every time you would do a spot, you would then film some VT before. So when you got to the live shows, which were all at Radio City in New York that summer, they would film, you'd have a little intro video for a minute and a half or whatever, and they'd say, what do you want to do, Paul? And I'd say, I want to go and do some hidden camera ventriloquism. Let's go into Central Park and make people think that there's, a man in a post box, or that there's a voice coming from a bush, or let's go and just try and film people's reactions. And they said, great, let's do it. So I went out and did all those things. There's ducks underneath a parked car. So I'm throwing bread underneath a car and doing these, is there a duck under here? And I'd get people sort of, looking around thinking, is there a duck? And the plan was just to get people to look underneath the car, just to see if they actually would look under a car. And when they looked under the car, I would leg it.
But you mentioned about enjoying it. In those moments when you get through the first audition and then you're starting to be a bit more creative and you can go out and filming, are you remembering to enjoy it? Because like you said, this is what a young boy dreamed of. Paul, when he was 8 years old and first picked up, these magic supplies and everything else, that's what you dream of. But when it's so easy, when you're in the moment and you're actually doing what you've hoped to do, it's so easy to get caught up in fear and nerves and trepidation and everything else, and pressure. And I feel that sometimes, at the end of a marathon swim or a marathon run, there's so many pressures of sponsors watching and press and all these things, and you forget, actually, I'm doing what I love. This was a hobby and now it's my career. How do you remember to enjoy those things?
That's a really good question. And I do remember being aware of it, having had a certain amount of success in this country. Then when I was in America and I was in the wings waiting to go on stage, and you're live on TV. The audition, which was my first spot on America's Got Talent, that was pre-recorded. And I think there was something also in the back of my head that was thinking, well, it's not live on telly, so it's not as scary as it would be if it was live. Now I'm on the live shows and I'm in the wings and I know that I've only got 3 minutes, and if I overrun for whatever reason, they'll cut me off. And there's someone literally waving at me saying, wind it up now, while I'm delivering my last bit of material. And I did, there's all those pressures, and then you've got to talk to the presenter, then you've got to be critiqued by the judges again. And you think, well, that's not for someone that's got a successful career going. Why on earth would you put yourself in that situation? And I don't know. Something made me do it. Something made me just try a different market. And I think because I was a bit hacked off with, I couldn't get any further here, so I thought I would try that. So that's what kind of carried me through. And because I'd been I'd been received with open arms in America during that show, and the reaction after each spot, I felt like, wow, they love a puppet here. What can I say? And I guess a lot of the television that I'd grown up watching was American, with Sesame Street and anything that Jim Henson was involved in. So the puppet characters are kind of Muppety that I use, and that was kind of deliberate because I knew that I didn't know anyone that didn't like the Muppets. So I thought, well, this is maybe they're more up for it here, and maybe in America they celebrate positivity a bit more. It's rags to riches, isn't it? It's that whole thing. That's kind of what
the American dream.
The American dream. So I think there was a bit of that.
So you fly through the audition stage, and I watched all 36 minutes of all your auditions, and you've got the judges on their feet, clapping and applauding you, every single one, and then you get to the 16th of September 2015, and you've completed your final performance at the final, and you are now waiting for them to say the 2 words, aka your name, to announce the winner of America's Got Talent, to win $1 million in prize money, and to win the Las Vegas headline show. They say those 2 words, Paul Zerdin. How does it feel to achieve that level of achievement? It's comparable to an athlete winning Olympic gold, or to a musician, achieving that number one that they've always worked for. In your world, that's it, right? And how does that feel?
Well, the build up to it, they keep you hanging on for a long time, and also I'd been in New York for about 3 weeks now, because I'd gone from quarterfinals to semi-finals to finals, and then you do the finals, and it's the next night is the results night, and they pad it out, they make it as long a show as possible, and so you've been up filming B-roll from very early on, and your adrenaline is literally, you're running on empty, but the adrenaline is getting you through it. So you are really tired. You are really drained. You're rehearsing all the time. You're rehearsing what happens where you go when you get voted off. So if they don't say your name, it's like choreography. You've got to move down here when he says now. It's now the next day. We're down to the top 5. So you need to move here and look that way. And then if you get called to the last 2, you need to go here. If you don't, you go that way. It's really regimentally choreographed, and obviously needs to be, because it's a massive TV show. But you're rehearsing for ages, and also I'm thinking it's as long as I come over well and I'm funny and I get to do everything I do, and not just in my spots but in the chats as well. You want to be entertaining, because quite often you'll come out and they'll say, "Oh, how are you, Paul?" "Oh, I'm great, thanks. How's it been since the semi-finals, whatever?" "Oh, it's been fantastic." You want that to be because it's quite difficult when you just start and you go, "Hello, how's it going?" "Oh, great, I'm Paul, I'm from London," whatever. "Okay, Paul, off you go." So, and then you go into performance mode. And I always think it looks a bit clunky sometimes when you go from just normal chatty person to, now I'm in my performance mode. I went to the ventriloquist convention the other day, and then you go into material, whatever. So it's always trying to keep that performance mode in your chat mode, and that's quite difficult. So I was very conscious of coming across well in everything, whatever it was, a press interview or the B-roll stuff, or your actual spot. So you are drained, and so when I won it, in my head and my professional head, because I'd been doing this for 25 years, up to the point where I won. My professional head went, "Oh my God, I didn't expect to win. Wow. I thought they'd vote for the American, but they love a puppet." That was going through my mind all the time. The whole series, I was like, "Oh, they love a puppet, don't they?" Because there's been 2 ventriloquists. No, there's been 1 ventriloquist winner already. I was the second, and now there's a 3rd since me. So they love a puppet.
You were the best, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I saw the others.
Bless you. Thank you. I just remember thinking, wow. But I also was thinking, oh my God, what am I supposed to do now? What did Roger Federer do when he first won Wimbledon? And I just remember thinking, oh yeah, that's it. So I put my hands over my face like that, which gave me a bit of thinking time. And I think I punched the air.
You did one of that. I saw
went
that,
like
yeah.
that. And I was thinking, what do sports people do when they win? That's what, because I wasn't used to jumping up and down. I'm not the sort of person that jumps up and down with excitement. I'm quite sort of, contained. But I thought I need to show excitement because I am excited, and it blew me away. But also the wind has been taken out of your sail, so you are like, oh, holy shit, I've just done it. And so there's all those things going around, and also I was just knackered. I was really, really tired. It had been a very long, stressful journey because in between the heats up to the live shows, I was still flying back to Europe and doing cruise ships and things. And so I was jet lagged. It was a mixture of euphoria and jet lag.
And it's been 10 years, or just over 10 years since you did return home. And you've achieved so much more since then. You've been working non-stop throughout. But how has your relationship with risk changed? Since going on and taking that big risk going to America, have you then started to influence your decision-making as well back home in the UK over the last 10 years?
I think the biggest thing I have learnt is always go with your gut. Your gut is always right. And when I've gone against my gut and people have said, no, this is why I'm the manager, I know what I'm doing, trust me. And you go, oh, okay, well, you're a new manager, I better trust you. And and they suggest something, or you get offered something, and I go, I don't know if that's for me. And this has happened to me a number of times. And every time I've gone against my gut, it's been a bad decision. So always go with your gut. 100% is always right.
And how about if you don't know how to read what your gut's even saying in the first place?
I think when someone says something to you, your initial thoughts quite often can be the right ones. But sleep on it anyway.
Sleep on it.
Always sleep on it, because something could come through and you go, oh my God, that's really made me angry. Whatever, and you reply, or whatever it is, you reply back. Just sleep on it first and think about it. And then the next morning with a clear head, then you've just had a bit more time to process it and come to a more rational judgment.
Interesting. I love that as well, about staying true to your values and making decisions, like you said, for you. When it's your name attached to it, it's probably very easy when you came home from America that you had all these deals and offers come in and probably new people who wanted to work with you, but you had to stay true to your values. I want to close with this question. I put out one on my Instagram yesterday, and I asked if you could ask you anything, what would they ask you? And it was actually one of my best friend, Dylan. His mum sent a great question, and she wanted to know if there's something you regret not doing in your career.
I can't think. There's probably loads. I got offered a game show some years ago, and I got taken out by this company and offered a game show. This has got a long time ago. It's before the talent show, and it was a very boozy lunch. The executives were encouraging lots of booze, and I got really pissed and said, no, it's not for me. And maybe that was a mistake. Maybe I should have taken the game show. I don't know. Game shows seem to be the way forward now. I don't know.
Well, that ties in perfectly to trusting your gut. There you go. You trusted your gut, and that's why you don't have those regrets.
I don't really have any regrets. I've got regrets that I didn't trust my gut at certain times, but it's all experience, isn't it?
Paul, it's been a real honour to sit down with you today. I'm a huge fan, and you speak with such enthusiasm, and you clearly love what you do. And as someone who's trying to pursue that same journey, you're a great inspiration to me, and I'm sure will be to all of our audience. So thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Lovely to meet you. Thank you so much. Very enjoyable.
Thank you. Hi everyone, Louis here, tuning in from Singapore, where I've just arrived for a week of talks to say a big thank you for listening to this week's episode of If You Can. And thank you again to Paul for coming on the show. What an incredible guest he was. The privilege to interview such incredible names and stories so early into the show is not taken for granted. So thank you everyone for the support. Now I'm going to finish this episode with our first ever Bob's Everyday Hero, which I mentioned last week we're going to conclude each episode with. Now Bob's Everyday Hero is an opportunity for me to give a shout out to someone from the If You Can community who's achieved something amazing. Big or small, something inspiring. It may be a moment of kindness. It may be taking a first step. It may be achieving a personal goal. It could be anything. And you can nominate yourself. You can nominate a friend, a family member, a colleague, anyone. Just have to drop us an email at louis@ifyoucanhq.com. Now, our first ever everyday hero is Sam, who sent in this email, which I'm going to read now. Hi, Louis. I've never emailed someone I don't know before, but I felt like I just wanted to after listening to Jeremy. I'm 24, working a job I don't hate but don't love either, and I've been stuck thinking I'll change things next year. Then at the start of 2026, nothing happened. Hearing Jeremy talk about the risks he's taken, especially the ones that paid off, was a great way to start the week. I don't have a plan yet, but I do feel like it's okay to start moving before it's all figured out. Yes, Sam. The first thing I did was write a list of other skills I have to see if I could turn into any of them into a side hustle. It's my dream to run my own business one day. Thank you for last week's episode, and please pass on my thanks to Jeremy next time you two catch up. Sam. Well, thank you, Sam, first of all, for sending in your email, and thank you as well for being honest. You're absolutely right. Taking that first step is so often the hardest thing we'll ever do, and it's the reason most people fail, because they can't even get to that start line, whether it's for a marathon, a job, or whatever it may be, but especially for when it's something like turning a dream into a plan, right? That's so often the hardest thing we can do. And sometimes we don't know what's in the start of that start line either, and sometimes it's an adventure and a journey greater than we could have ever even imagined. My first adventure was at 19 when I climbed Kilimanjaro. I had no idea when I embarked on that first ever adventure that I would end up here at 26 with world records and getting to call adventure a full-time career. But you have to start. So I encourage you to do that. I urge you to take that first leap, to keep thinking about what it is you want to actually do, to keep thinking about what it is you have a passion in, a natural passion, and maybe a skill. And then take those first steps. No one's going to do it for you, but there are amazing people out there who will support, who can offer mentorship, who may be able to offer advice or help. So come up with a plan, start reaching out for help and support from the right people. And more than anything, do the work. Take that leap. More than anything, I wish you all the very, very best. So we're going to send you out a Bob Shower pack to say thank you for listening, to say good luck for the next chapter. And thank you again, everyone, for tuning into this week's episode of If You Can. If you'd like to nominate an everyday hero, drop me an email at louis@ifyoucanhq.com and your story may be featured. Bye, everyone. We'll see you next week.